Alrighty, let's just check to see if I'm live. I'm just checking the other. Alrighty, looks like we're working now. The slight delay. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Really appreciate that for those who had jumped on. A bit of a tech issue to kind of kick off. Always a fun way to kick off a live stream. Let me just close this because that's distracting. Connect the chat. So if you are still there, feel free to give me a hi, hello. Let me know that you're still with us, despite the awkward start. So what I'll do is I'll kind of kick off again in terms of an introduction to today's live stream as we're now up and running. So first, welcome to today's local marketing live stream with myself, Hawley. Today, we're going to answer the question, why are customers taking much longer to say yes? And we're going to use the customer decision-making process, that framework, as a way to unpack and better understand why that's the case. Now, I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, even for yourself, taking a little longer to make decisions, or you've experienced clients that are taking, again, a little longer to say yes. It's quite common. Research has shown that around 24% of baby boomers and 50% of Gen Z are reported that taking at least 2 days longer to make a decision than they did prior to COVID. Can't remember the source for this one, but anecdotally, I've heard that in the B2B space, that the average number of touch points or the number of elaborating on a proposal or a quote or an offer has increased from around 7 touch points to around 13 touch points. In the B2C space, that number has used to be around 13, has increased to 21. So it's one of the reasons why you're seeing ads repeatedly showing up, the same ad on your social media feed over and over again, is because the data is indicating that high frequency, or people need to see these ads more and more before they actually take action. So it's quite common now. But what I'm noticing, though, is although we can recognize that for all the right reasons, we are taking a little longer to make a decision, that business owners are not taking that into effect on how they're designing their website and their content strategy in order to make it easier for those to say yes as the requirements of information has changed. So that's what I want to go through today, is go through step by step on the 5 stages of the consumer decision-making process, and then share examples of what that might look like in terms of updates to your website, what it might look like in terms of updates to your social media. And then if you do recognize, you know what, this is an area that I want to explore further in kind of tailor this to how it might impact my business, then that's where the marketing clarity session that you can book with myself is perfect. Because then the two of us can sit down and really map out not only what the decision journey looks like for your customer, but also start to tailor your website and social media or your content planning around that for your customer. So obviously watch the video, check out the resources that's supporting this on the Buy Local Sunshine Coast website, ask questions in the chat for those that are live, or even in the comments afterwards. I'll always keep an eye on the comment section for this and make sure you've got what you need to move forward. So the framework is broken up into 5 steps. You've got need recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, the purchase decision, and then post-purchase behavior. So let's start with need recognition. So this is where the prospect or the customer recognizes that there's a gap between their current state and their desired state. And that could be triggered from internal experiences. So it might be, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm bored, something's broken, I need to fix it. So there's something that's acted as a trigger within their own kind of world, their own kind of experience, where they've identified that there's a gap that they need to fulfill. So that's kind of intrinsic, but there's also that trigger can also be from advertising as well. So a reminder to go see the dentist, or a reminder to renew your insurance, or an ad that presents something that you go, you know what, that is a more preferred desired state. I should look into this and take some sort of action. So depending on your type of business will depend on which trigger is most relevant to yours. So if your business is, let's say, in a home service business where people are fixing things or responding to like regular stuff, like they're getting their haircut, they've got a plumbing issue, they've got a tech issue, they've got something that something happens around and then they take action. What they'll usually do when they recognize that need gap is they'll jump online and do a search, right? So they'll do a Google search. plumbers near me or hairdressers near me, or maybe they know someone that I already work with and go give them a call. So that need recognition is really kind of tapped into like an existing search traffic, right? People are actively looking for it. And for those businesses, your social media and your search strategy and your website is all about capturing those opportunities as they come through. I think there's like a river of opportunities or a river of leads. You're just coming in with your bucket and kind of collecting your fair share. And that's what your website to help ensure that you're ranking high on search, using the advice shared last week around making sure you're on all the map listings, you're getting the Google reviews, so you're coming up in those search results. And just making sure that when that need recognition kicks in, they know that you're the right place. But not all of us are delivering products or services where people self-identify that there's a gap between the desired state. Sometimes they need to be prompted. So coaching is a great example of this. A lot of wellness practitioners is a good example of this. The different products or services, they're not necessarily top of mind. But then when you hear a story, right, where you go, oh, and that's where great advertising can kick in, particularly if it's story-driven or narrative-driven, where you're hearing about someone that was in this, undesired state, had taken some action, and now is in this desired state. And that story then drives the trigger of like, there is a better way to do this, particularly in business where there's kind of assumption of how we've always done it is how we're going to continue to do it. They don't realize there are better ways to conduct their business, deliver their service. They can save them time or deliver much better experiences for their customers. So that need recognition can be expressed through, for those where it's like the search driven, the top of the page, hey, if you got this need, you come to the right place and provide, what they need for that. But for coaching services and those where you are trying to create the need recognition and recognizing it, that's where, you're sharing stories, but also when they come to your website, having tools that helps them to better understand this gap of desired state. So having diagnostic tools, calculators, those types of elements where they come to your page and they go, wait, do I have this problem? Like, is there a better way of doing this? Maybe I'll play with your calculator, or I'll play with your diagnostic tool, or I'll complete this quiz, so they can then kind of, determine whether or not they are in fact in this place of need. So that's some really cool tools. And one kind of thing I'll just highlight as well, when you are creating like quizzes and diagnostic tools and stuff like that on your website, to then communicate on your social media that you've got this this new tool. So make sure it's on a separate landing page. So the last thing you want to do is have this awesome tool that helps people identify that need gap, but it's hidden, the bottom third of your website. So it's very important when you're creating these tools to help people understand the gap between the desired state, that it's on a separate landing page. And that way, when you're creating content on your social media, drawing attention to this ability to evaluate, they can go directly to a landing page that allows them to complete that thing. And what's cool with those sort of diagnostic tools or quizzes is that you can then request that they provide the email, and you'll send them the report, or you'll send them the results. And that then allows you to kind of capture those details and then put them into a nurture series. So that's the need recognition, right? And quite often, a lot of businesses just don't have a strategy around it. So a lot of us will focus in on the next two stages, but not realizing that we do have an opportunity to help prompt or help create need around our service. So there's some real good opportunities around that. The next stage is the information search. So this is where, all of us want to be informed shoppers, right? We want to make sure we're making the right choice for ourselves. So although we've now recognized that there's this gap between our current state and our desired state, we want to understand, well, what are the options? What are the solutions? What's the language or words that I need to know so I can come across as a smart, sophisticated shopper, so I'm not going to be taken advantage of? So even though they may complete your diagnostic tool, they might still do additional research. They might want to check out some webinars, some YouTube, some podcasts. They might want to have a conversation with the people in the network that they trust, that might have gone through a similar experience in their business or in their world, in their personal life. There's this kind of element of like trying to just go out and kind of understand what is this kind of category? What is this kind of opportunity? Is this something worth pursuing? How do I make sure that I am a smart shopper? So on your website, this is where you can provide, really helpful information, guides, webinars, shopping guides too, like comparisons. Like one ones I really like is comparing what you offer compared to like a typical offer, and then like a top tier, or like what people might be aware of mainstream. So you imagine like a coach like comparing, say, well, here's like what a Tony Robbins type thing is. Here's what a typical coach does, and here's how I kind of fit in between those two variations. So it just, it's just really providing information so that they feel like you're making them feel smarter, more sophisticated. They're recognizing where it fits within their business. This is where for the information search, stories can be really helpful. Case studies, that sort of thing, can also help in terms of for them collecting their information. The other thing too on the website design is a lot of businesses focus in on services, right? So you have your homepage, and then you have your services. And that can be helpful for sure, but I do recommend that instead of designing a service page, I would design for the customers, like customer pages, because the information, let's say I do property maintenance for different businesses as well as households. The decision or the information required from a property manager who's managing a property of 50 assets, it's going to be very different to someone who's just looking to get spring clean done. So the information that we package together is not really the service. It's really about, well, what's the info that they need, so they feel much more comfortable, like, okay, great, this person understands me and has a series of services or a package that's tailored to me, and what the step 1, step 2, step 3 looks like, what the maintenance and reporting looks like, estimates and pricing, that type of thing as well. For those businesses that are more like home services, trade services, those that are very search driven, as you probably realize, a lot of people in that information gathering stage are looking for prices and quotes, right? So one of the main ways that they have to kind of quickly kind of gather information is they're looking for pricing, looking for quotes. They're trying to understand the landscape so they get an idea of like what high looks like, what low looks like, what's the medium, so they can make more informed choices. And for those businesses, I do recommend where it makes sense, put pricing on the website, maybe even have like a quote estimator, something that kind of captures a little bit of details and then provides what an estimate can look like. I've seen some really great examples of kind of like a landscaping company using like Google Earth and Google Maps to get images of the property, to get an idea of like accessibility and the size of the space, to help them with some of the calculations around quote, to help kind of minimize the amount of time or like kind of like a first round estimate before they go in and do a formal quote, to help save them time. So there's some really cool things you can really think about of different tools and different things that you can build to help people through that information gathering stage. And for some people, information gathering could take like minutes, it can take hours, it can take weeks, it can take months, it can take years, right? So sometimes people kind of stay in that loop for quite a while in terms of, information gathering, like finding the info. And that's where, when you create these nurture email sequences that you might build in your CRM, often you're helping people through that information stage, right? Are you helping to make them feel like more informed, smarter shoppers, better understand that need gap they've got, creating some urgency and why it's the right time to act now versus delaying for a little bit longer, giving them access to webinars and resources, also they can get to a point where they have the information they need in partnership with the resources to then go and make the decision. All right, so need recognition, information search. The next then is evaluation of alternatives. What this means is now they've decided, it's time for me to move forward. I now understand how to go about making this decision. Now they want to evaluate, between the top 2 or 3 providers on who's the right one for them. And for this, it's really about like, who do I trust that's going to deliver on their promise, right? And they might have some very specific questions or require like a little bit of a nudge in order for them to go from evaluating to saying yes. So let's kind of break that down a little bit in terms of content. So in terms of the evaluation stage, in terms of like trust cues, because that's where testimonials can be really helpful. Google reviews can be really helpful. Obviously, video testimonials can be really great as well. Having frequently asked questions, super helpful as well. But basically, you're providing what they need to help evaluate. in terms of why you are the right choice for them. This is where stuff like the about page, your story can be really helpful. Trust cues like your qualifications, awards and accolades that you've got, publications that you might have done, other customers that you've worked with. All these kind of trust cues helps to kind of create an evaluation set. You're also, at this stage, could be helpful to have like a bit of a nudge as well. Like, what's the thing that kind of give a bit of a nudge to take action now? You could do a discount, don't always recommend it, but a discount could act as a nudge for them to take immediate action. Maybe there's like a bonus that you might offer or something to help go like, hey, now's the perfect time. Even just like an availability call of like, hey, I've got one spot available this week. If you've been considering taking action, take action today because I've got the one spot, let's lock it in. So really think about what that nudge can be for you as well. Then on the social media side, this is where you kind of shift from kind of creating content for the masses and really focus in on the one-to-one. Because if they're at the evaluation stage, they've likely already engaged with you in some way. They might, because they might have requested the quote previously. They might have been opening some of your emails, watched some webinars. They're following you on social media. Maybe you've had a conversation with them prior. Generally speaking, at this stage, there's already been at least one interaction with you already. So doing one-to-one communication is really effective in this stage, which might be just picking up the phone, like, hey, just checking in, or like, hey, I understand that you're, 2 weeks ago we talked about this. You weren't quite ready to say yes now. 2 weeks on, what's the impact it's been on your business so far? Is it now time to take action to make sure that you're getting the results you're looking for? Or, that thing you noticed in your yard, it's not getting any better. Let's I've got a space this afternoon. Let's fill it in and make sure you're taken care of. So that kind of phone call is really great. Direct messaging, so like a direct message on like Instagram or LinkedIn can be really good. Personalized email, but you're really using that type of content as like nudges, right, in order for them to move forward. And it shows that you care. And in that evaluation stage where I'm looking for who do I trust that's going to deliver on their promise, those types of one-to-one actions are really good indicators that you are someone that can be trusted to deliver on your promise. So a lot of really cool content you can create around that evaluation stage. And this is also where, like on the evaluation stage as well, of like, having up-to-date info on your website makes it easy for them to, like, especially if it's all in one place, makes it very easy for them to compare you. If someone else has all their content spread out on multiple pages, they'll create overwhelm and confusion, but yet yours just feels simple. Like, oh, I clearly know what the opportunity is or what the cost is, or the impact is to make the choice. Then we've got the purchase decision, right? So we win, right? The client says yes, and they're ready to commit to our product, our service, whatever it might be. So the key here is about making it simple, right? So we don't want to inconvenience them by making it too complicated or too burdensome to say yes. So making it easy for the transaction. So maybe they pay online or you send them an invoice, but whatever it is, you make it relatively simple to say yes. And also really think about what that first, like, post-purchase engagement looks like. I've made this mistake in the past where they've agreed to get a new website, and then the first thing I do is send them a series of forms, right? So like, here's my client service agreement, here's the onboarding form, and all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I just agreed to say yes, and now you're sending me this other thing I've got to sign up to. I've got to spend another hour filling out this form. It just feels too much, too overwhelming, and it can really dampen that kind of the vibe of finally saying yes. So I think it's really important to really think about, how do you give them a quick win that feels really good, that they've gone, yes, I've made this decision and it's the right decision, versus kind of delaying that kind of initial gratification. So you might do that by give them a call, like, hey, thank you so much for signing up. Looking forward to working with you. Here's what you can expect over the next steps, like that kind of personal contact. Great. I'm seeing some really good examples of, I think this is Dennis, you might have mentioned this one, but where he does like a personal video recording, like a recording thank you of like just 20 seconds, like, hey, thank you so much for becoming a member of my thing. I'm really looking forward to working with you. And he just kind of records them during the day as new signups come through. So it feels very one-to-one and personalized. Maybe instead of sending more of the paperwork, you make sure it's an in-person kind of catch-up first or a Zoom call. And then during that call is where you then provide them the details and on the client service agreement, onboarding, and how to capture the details. But really think about, what does that purchase decision experience look like? And am I making it too burdensome when they almost like, oh, this is too much? Or am I making it like, it should be a celebration? Like, I'm doing it, right? I'm gonna close this gap. I'm gonna take action. We get a brand new website and get this new thing. So really think about what that experience looks like. And then the last step, the fifth step, is the post-purchase behavior, right? So you deliver your service, and then what happens afterwards? And this is really important. So there's kind of 3 levels to this. You've got delighted, satisfied, and unsatisfied. So also unsatisfied means that you did not deliver on your promise, right? And this often stems from poor communication or just not managing expectations properly. So it's really important to be very clear what it is that you deliver, how do you deliver it, and make sure that that's consistent across your messaging, right? So whatever you promise back in the information stage, you've got a workflow and system in place to ensure that you deliver right through to purchase, and that it's effectively communicated in a way that they understand. And people, perception is reality, right? So they might misinterpret or misunderstand information provided, which then challenges you on like, well, how do I make this better? How do I make this more refined? Maybe I've got to open up the ways I communicate beyond just email. Maybe I've got to bring in more voice or video chats in order to ensure in understanding throughout to reduce the likelihood of them being dissatisfied at the end. So it's really like an imbalance of expectation management. And then you've got satisfied, right? So it means that you've met expectations, but there isn't with it. If they're just satisfied, it means there is a risk that next time this comes up, they might go with one of your competitors, right? So you met their needs, but they're like, okay, like it's okay, it's fine. Like you did what you said you want to do, but they're not delighted, which means that they're still open to different options. And then delighted means that you exceeded expectations, right? So at that delighted stage means they're more likely to recommend you and refer you, more likely to use your service again, more likely to become an advocate. And so for the content here, there's a few things. Sometimes people don't realize how good of a job you did. Right? So it seems like a weird thing, but sometimes just being really good at communicating what you provided and what the outcome is or what the impact is can really help them in their kind of post-purchase evaluation. So making sure that you have like a process in play to help communicate it. Also, asking them for their review, asking them for their testimonial, particularly at I mentioned it last week, but the moment of euphoric moment where like it's at the peak of happiness, of delightment of what's happened here, capturing that and then sharing it on social medias can also help you down the path as well. But they also feel acknowledged and recognized and thanked as well. That could be really important. For big projects, so especially if they spend a bit of money with you, really thinking about what the thank you gift can look like as well can really help, change their perception around the value. So that, it could be a physical gift, maybe you organize a digital gift card. There's a variety of things that you can do to make them feel really appreciated and thanked for working with you for that period of time. And that's not just like corporate services. If you're doing like a large landscaping job, they spend 50 grand with you, providing them at the end like a gift basket, of a bunch of local goodies and a thank you card. I mean, that just makes them feel like superstars, right? Like, hey, your first barbecue's on us, right? In your new yard, and they're going to more likely to recommend you, more likely to review you, and when it's time to do a refresh, they're more likely to use your services again. So really think about that kind of post-purchase experience and the kind of content that comes out of it. For the website, this might be like a maintenance portal type thing where they can go and get information on how to maintain their thing for longer. Like maintenance of their yard or like quick trips here and like resources. A chiropractor, actually, the chiropractor I used to work with had a really good like resource section on his website, which had different stretches and different things that you can do yourself in between treatments to get the best results, right? So those types of things where it's really helping to provide and extend the benefits of what you've given for longer can be really great content for your website. And of course, you can redistribute on your social as well. So by doing those things, we're really thinking about each stage of like, what can I do not around the need recognition and help them better understand what that need gap looks like and the impact of inaction around that first step. What's the information that I'm providing during that information search, which can spiral, can at times take a while, but what's the info that I'm providing to make them feel like smart, sophisticated shoppers? so they feel like they truly understand what it means to say yes. Then the evaluation stage, what is it that I'm doing to make it easier for them to say yes, to evaluate me compared to the other options available. So they've got pricing, they understand the differences, they've got the FAQs, they've got everything they need to go, yeah, this is the one that's I can trust, that's going to deliver on their promises. And then what's that purchase experience look like? Like, what is it that I can do to really make them feel great about saying yes with as much immediacy as possible, versus kind of overwhelming them with the onboarding, and then kind of feeling like, oh, this is actually more than I thought it was going to be. It'll take longer than I thought it was going to be. And then that post-purchase, how do we make sure that they know you delivered, right? They know they got a great experience, that they feel delighted because there's been some real energy and thought around how to say thank you, and make them understand the value that you provided, gift them as well, and then encourage the advocacy from there. So I hope you found that really helpful, and also a few different examples in there as well. So really do take the time to think about what that means for your business. Happy to catch up one-to-one through our marketing clarity sessions so we can translate this for you. So what does it look like for your website? What does it look like as a content plan across your social media? So you are actively building something to support from your marketing through to your sales and service delivery, and then post-sales delivery that really moves customers through, and the experience is maintained the whole way through. Very, very important, because there's a lot of steps. I'm sure you're probably reflecting on now and going, man, I'm not doing half of this stuff. And that might explain why I'm not getting the referrals that I'm expecting, or the reviews that I'm getting, or slowdown here, or why people are taking a lot longer to say yes, because you're making it harder and more inconvenient for them to get the info, to review the decisions, in order for them to say yes. So really do think about, for first timers coming into your world, your ecosystem, how do you make this a little easier? So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to connecting with you again, same time next week, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Thank you.